So hello there, everyone who frequents this channel. I'm Dex. I'm one of the Tuesday guys, and I'm actually sorry that this is gonna be uploaded on Wednesday. Um, I had my top surgery on Friday, and then I had crazy complications that landed me in the hospital from the anesthesia, and between lung pain and Percocet, I don't really know what's going on half of the day. And then when I do know what's going on half of the day, I still don't really think I know what's going on half of the day. So I've been a little out of it recently. Since it's like day 5, technically like day 6. Um, I'm still getting into the swing of moving and being able to breathe, but the binder is making it so it's like I pretty much don't breathe. So, yeah. Um, today's. I'm sorry, I look all awkward because I got the super vest thing on. I'll probably talk on my own channel about that, just cause. But today, this week's question was, what is your favorite thing about being trans, and what do you look forward to in the future? Um, So I'm gonna answer the second part first because had someone asked me this question last week, it would have been easier to answer. So now I have to really think about it. Um, okay. My favorite thing about no, what am I looking forward to in the future? Um, Originally I would have said like most guys, many guys say top surgery. For me, it's the being able to put my hands above my head. But no, really, what I'm looking forward to in the future is that once I'm healed enough, I'll be able to start exercising. I'm trying to get my diet better. I'm trying to get my life together because I have other pre-existing medical conditions and mental health conditions, and having that chest physically made it impossible for me to work out. And it was one of those wear a bra, go to the gym, but your ID says one thing, and that in itself is already a stressful thing to do. So it's wear a binder, but I couldn't wear just one because I didn't have enough support or I wouldn't pass. So it's wear two, but two binders, lungs in the water, compression, rib swelling, and then in order to get a good enough workout where it's even worth working out, it was too much of a health risk, and I was like, I don't know what's going on. So for me, I'm excited now that I'm post-op that I can go out and I can do the physical aspect. And I've been so impatient recently. Um, and not because of the testosterone, actually. It's just when it comes to me and my weight and my body image, I'm always impatient about that. But this experience has given me the opportunity to really just sit down and think. And just remember, I'm only 20 years old. Um, and through the surgical process, people were aghast at how I've had so many things happen for me, and I haven't even been a year on testosterone yet. And so I was like, it really put things in perspective. That I look forward in the future is being able to find my place in this world as a person and as a being in existence in space. And I'm looking most forward to being able to feel like I can have some control and freedom in my life now, because it is very difficult being a college student and being trans and binding. Um, because I was like, I don't know what to do, and due to other situations, I have a roommate. So for me, even my roommate's genderqueer or gender agendered, I'm sorry. It's great, because we don't have to worry about that. I was like, but there's still that self-consciousness of a breast, um, and a body you don't like. So at least I know that this is one aspect of my body that I can start learning to embrace, and it's going to allow me to make the changes in my life that I know I want to, and that I need to for my health. That being said, what do I like about being trans? Like my most favorite thing? Um, my favorite thing about being trans is the more you transition and the more I learn about it, the more it screws with my perception of what the world was. And it's actually really anxiety producing. It's like I'm in a consistent existential crisis. But what I mean by that is being trans, you always have the question of, am I fighting the gender binary? Am I reinforcing the gender binary? And a lot of it is just it's too sometimes it's just too much for the mind. And I took a class on sociology of sexualities last semester as well as men's lives. And in that process, I learned a lot more about the body. And being transgender, you start to realize, and it really makes, at least not you, but it makes me question what are the differences between a man and a woman and a male and a female, and about how do you bridge the differences and accept differences where it's okay that you can be different. Different can be equal. It does not, you don't have to be the same to be equal. Um, and that is, I think, my favorite thing is because the more I learn about how my body works, the more fascinated I become because I realize that a male and female body are essentially like 99% the same template. And so when people always ask me about, my genitals, they ask me about what hormones do. And they're like, that's just unnatural. And I'm like, actually, it's not. And they're like, what do you mean? And I was like, before you hit the testosterone surge, like I think around 6 to 8 weeks in utero, I'm like, the body's the exact same. It's actually agendered. There's no gender to it. That is an agendered life. And I was like, that's a sexless life. We assume that all bodies are technically born female, and that's actually by a process of elimination. What it is that the actual internal structures like that separate female and male, there's two types of actual special ducts that create that whole reproductive and sex organ situation. One disappears, the other stays. One disappears, the other stays. And it's the body's like way of shorthand of being able to make that decision once the hormone surge happens or doesn't happen. And so when I learned about it, I was like, I've had people ask, how is it possible for you to have a bottom surgery, for example? Or why do men have nipples? Or why do women get facial hair? And it's like, okay, now facial hair stuff, that's hormones. I'm like, again, so when you tell me that stuff is unnatural, remember, those women in your life that you know who are of a certain age and older, they hit, when they stop menstruation and they start hitting menopause, and the facial hair, the voice gets rugged. That's when women hit their sexual peak is usually right around the time of menopause. That's a testosterone surge, very similar to males. And low testosterone that accompanies age, a certain type of sensitivity in older males, where you start to see them kind of relax, loosen up, and life kind of changes, and they want to they want to talk, or they become more attuned to listening. They're less irrational or less like impulsive. A lot of it's because testosterone is, dropping and estrogen's rising. And I'm like, you see this in everyday people. In a sense, you all have your weird kind of own gender transition that you don't know that's happening just because your hormones shift. But I was like, I'm learning that the body itself is really much the same thing. It's actually pretty cool. My professor showed me. She's like, everyone looks at a penis and vagina and saying, "Oh my goodness, they're so different." She's like, actually, they're not. She's like, and that's how they could do like an intersex surgery. That's how trans women can have a neo vagina and trans men can have a some sort of neo phallus, whether you build one or you use what's already there. He's like, she told me the structures are the exact same. The names are different. They just look different. Males hold all their stuff on the bottom. We hold all ours on the top. It just goes up and goes down, but it's the exact same thing, essentially. Like the purpose is different, but the tissue is the same. And she's like, and what does that say? She's like, they're really not that different. And you could be surprised. She's like, if one hormone in utero can do that much change, but not really change, what does that mean about our bodies? And so, I mean, in the process, the more I have to question for myself, I mean, transitioning to me makes me question everything. And I like it. I'll be honest, I can't really tell you anymore what I feel masculinity is outside of a look. Like I think of masculinity now as a style and certain attitude traits, but it's more of a style for me. Because I was like, I grew up around women. I was raised by women, like almost nothing but women. And I look at all these traits and I'm thinking, wow, the traits that were attributed to men were bestowed upon the women in my life. They either had to have it or they just took it because they did. And I was thinking, interesting, and then sometimes, my best friend at college, Vanilla, he has been the most supportive person in my life this last semester. And he and my friend Riley came with me to my top surgery. And, there's a certain kind of masculine distance. I was like, but after talking to the both of them, they have this sensitivity and this care and this love that is considered distinctly feminine. And it's like, I'm like, but I don't get it. I'm like, because it's not the feminine that I'm told is feminine. And I'm like, and I don't like that. And so it's really cool because the more I ask questions, the more it helps me kind of get to a closer point where I feel like I can live in the world and not feel like everything's against me, like it's set to be against me. And it's like the more I realize that everything really here is just a matter of relativity, like we just kind of put things against each other in order to make sense because we don't want to accept that maybe it just is, and that's okay. It makes it easier for me to say my body is, it just is, it just is, like, so, you know and it gives me a much more of an appreciation for everything. Yes, I did live my life as a female, but that doesn't mean that I can express that all females are the same. And I now live my life as a male, and I can't express that all males are the same. I was like, but I can tell you that some of the women and men's struggles are very real. And some of them really don't need to be that real as real. They're not really as, they don't need to be what they are. Like, just in a short amount of time, I'm like, trust and believe. I was like, appearance wise went from female to male in a month and a half. Like everything, passing everything in a month and a half. And I'm like, you'd be surprised how much changed, and then at the same time how much didn't. And I'm like, again, this is the longest video I'm ever gonna make, so eat it up, guys. But it's kind of like a lot of the world, and particularly US culture, is built on difference. And one of the most basic differences that people don't want to screw with is sex and gender. Because there are very few things in this world that you can guarantee and that you can prove. And that's the one thing we assume that we know everything it is about. I'm sorry, I'm getting messages. But it's really kind of insane because I've come to the realization that, to me, at the root of all of these struggles, you know what I'm saying, trans or not, at the root of is particularly all this trans struggles with people against us, the root of it is fear. And it does come from the concept of when I transition, that means you transition, in the sense that the changes I make in my life mean that you have to start asking yourself questions. And it's not that people don't want to ask questions, but the questions that they have to ask all come down there because you're masking the one question nobody wants to have to ask themselves, which is, who am I? When my identity changes and I take control of that, now you have to wonder, because I'm questioning things that your identity was hinged on. Now you have to question, who am I? And that is the scariest question to ask yourself, because then you're thinking, wow, if I built myself on these things and they're actually not as like stringent and rigid as I thought they were, that gives me a lot of choice, a lot of freedom, and then there's a lot of loss that you feel because you're thinking, wow, who who am I? How did I become this way? And did I make these decisions, or is this a culmination of things I had no control over? And so it helped me reach that real world perspective of, now I see, and that gives me patience with most people who want to come at me sideways, um, or who want to get angry about stuff and want to debate, because I know that deep down it's just all about fear and vulnerability. Um, which makes my life much easier. At least I feel a lot easier about it. So that was my 2 cents, and I'm actually so excited because I don't think the Percocet has knocked me out yet. So I'm pretty sure I'll pass out like an hour, be out for like 36. I hope actually. All right, so that's my week's stuff, and I hope to talk to you all later. And I hope that you all have a wonderful new year and a wonderful 2014. So make it worth it.